Then again, he'd never flown first class either. I don't have a stake, he admitted. One of them shrugged. Don't worry about it. If you win, we'll pay you. So they played. He boarded the plane with a ticket he couldn't afford. He disembarked with every dollar back in his pocket. A flight paid for in cards and chance. My mother remembers it differently. They met for the first time that evening under the dim glow of a Rutgers dorm kitchen, as he introduced himself to all the other students from Taiwan, and asked, "Can anyone spare some cash? Just enough to get by until I can deposit my first stipend check." That was my father's introduction to America. Quick decisions, high stakes. It wouldn't be the last time he made a high-stakes gamble. But the next time, the gamble wouldn't just be his, it would be ours. But before that moment, there was Taipei. When the Chinese nationalists retreated to Taiwan in 1949, my father's parents fled with the army, my mother's with the Air Force. No warning, no goodbyes. Homes, relatives, communities, left behind forever. Taipei wasn't home. It was a million refugees from all across mainland China, stranded on an island, waiting for a war that would never come. Every year the government promised, next year, always next year. Until next year was gone, hope perpetually deferred. Families clung to the one thing that exile couldn't erase, education. My parents grew up just miles apart, same textbooks, same streets, same air raid drills, but their paths never crossed. Each believed that they would one day return to a homeland that they had only heard stories about. Taiwan was under martial law then, but as children, they barely noticed. They didn't remember the censorship or the curfews. What they remembered was the smell of the after-school street vendors, the pop of Chinese New Year firecrackers, and the street games that lasted until dusk. For the adults, it was exile, but for my parents, it was the only home they had ever known. They attended National Taiwan University at the same time, but they never met, not in Taipei. Not until that evening in New Brunswick, where the aromas of ginger, sesame oil, and soy sauce curled through the air, and the loaf of mandarin spilled into the hallway like a long-forgotten song. I have two older brothers, but you never know it from our baby albums. John, he's everywhere. Smiling, crying, learning how to walk. James, 2 photos, maybe 3. No messy birthday frosting, no record of his first steps. It wasn't that he wasn't there, just that no one had the film to prove it. And for the younger ones out there wasn't iCloud back then. You had to buy film, pay to get it developed, and then wait a week, just hoping that no one blinked. And it wasn't just film that was scarce. When Jimmy was born, my father realized something. Raising a toddler and a newborn on 2 graduate stipends? Impossible. He was almost there, so close to his doctorate in computer science. But almost wasn't enough. Not when hunger decides for you. At Bell Labs, it wasn't food my father lacked. It was recognition. No PhD, no tenure, just a temp paid half the salary of the real research scientists. Every day at noon, the scientists got up, put on their coats, joked about filet versus ribeye at the steakhouse down the road. He waited, just in case. But they never asked. The doors swung shut behind them, laughter trailing down the halls. He stayed, ate quickly and quietly, pretending not to notice. While they dined, he scribbled on napkins. They returned with full stomachs. He returned with solutions. In the late 1980s, advances in hardware and algorithms electrified computer science. Problems long thought impossible were suddenly within reach. At Bell Labs, one of those seemingly intractable challenges was airline crew scheduling. Imagine running an airline. Every day, tens of thousands of pilots and flight attendants staff thousands of flights. Add in union rules, federal regulations, individual preferences, and the scheduling combinations become astronomical. Solving the problem perfectly by hand, out of the question. But for decades, that's exactly what airlines tried to do, bleeding money on inefficiencies because there was no better option. Bell Labs had PhDs, accolades, prestigious titles, but on this problem, they hit a wall. Until my father stepped in. With lunch hours and coffee-stained napkins, he cracked it. Not just a small improvement, a breakthrough. For the first time, airlines could solve schedules in hours instead of weeks. Bell Labs licensed my father's solution to Delta Airlines for an 8-figure sum. My father received 1 cent for every dollar his invention earned. It was enough to stabilize our family's finances for the first time, but he couldn't shake the feeling that he deserved better. When I was 2, he walked out of Bell Labs for the last time. As he left, he heard laughter from the conference room, the same voices that never invited him to lunch. He tossed his badge onto his desk, kept walking, didn't look back. They would notice his absence soon enough. Okay. My mother's entire family thought he was insane. No guaranteed salary, no safety net, just raw determination. He told her, "Give me a year. If it doesn't work out, I'll go back." Banks wouldn't lend to someone like him, so he turned to the only people who would. Seed money trickled in from the aunties and uncles back in his military village in Taiwan. Just enough to sustain our family and buy a single computer. Just enough to survive. Unlike that bridge game, these stakes were real. Within 6 months, he rewrote the software entirely in C, leapfrogging the outdated COBOL version he had pioneered at Bell Labs. Within a year, he had signed on his first client and repaid all of his investors with interest. His first client was TWA, and if you don't know what TWA is, just know it's a major airline like United, but great software couldn't save them from the 90s. 30 years later, I had completed a PhD in operations research and settled into a career at Goldman Sachs. One day, my father told me he was retiring. He wasn't going to shut down the company, but he wasn't taking on any new clients. I had initially planned to stay in finance, but a deeper calling tugged at me. Taking over wasn't just inheriting a business, it was stepping into a legacy forged from impossible decisions, quiet sacrifices, and the resolve not to be marginalized. My father built the company with more than an algorithm. He built it with tough choices. A plane ticket he couldn't afford, a diploma traded to feed his family, a paycheck abandoned in search of something greater. My father's legacy wasn't just solving crew planning. It was proving that when given the chance, we don't just belong, we lead. When he retired, I was given a choice. Stay on Wall Street, where I worked for others, or take on something where the future and the stakes were mine. Something real, something we could call our own. It wasn't easy. Goldman had been good to me, and stepping away felt nothing like a defiant toss of a badge onto a desk. I rewrote my resignation letter a dozen times, scrapped it entirely in between, told myself I'd wait another year, just one more bonus cycle. But in the end, I did exactly what he had done decades earlier. I took the leap. Because this story isn't just mine. It's about the crew members who deserve to be there for the moments that matter. It's about the passengers making it home for birthdays, witnessing vows at weddings, or even making it in time for their first day of graduate school. Because a schedule isn't a puzzle, it's people's lives. My father built this company so that airlines wouldn't sacrifice fairness for efficiency, so that the people who make air travel matter get the work-life balance they deserve. That's why I left Wall Street. Not out of obligation, but out of belief. Because some things are worth building. And when the stakes are yours, you don't hesitate. You step up, you take the controls.